In front of 30 farmers, an agricultural millionaire pointed his finger inches from a young widow's face and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was the kind meant to humiliate. He said if his $2.5 million planter ran, he'd sell her his ranch for $30. But when she failed, she would sign a document admitting she was nobody, just a pretender playing mechanic. Emily swallowed the insult and said nothing. She bent down and opened the old toolbox she had inherited from her grandfather. Its metal, scarred from decades of use. Around her, men whispered, laughed, and shook their heads. Under that pressure, under that hatred, she found something no one else had ever seen. Hidden behind a panel that looked purely decorative was a sealed compartment. When she turned the first valve, the sound of the system shifted. Not louder, not quieter, different. The entire yard went silent. Because if that machine moved in, the next few seconds, it wouldn't just change ownership of a planter. It would rewrite everything they thought they knew. Emily Vasconelos was 29 years old when she returned to the small Iowa town where she was born. She hadn't been back in nearly 8 years, not since she left at 21 to work in specialized workshops across the state. She didn't return chasing opportunity. She returned because of a phone call that no daughter ever wants to receive. Her father, Donald Vasconelos, had died suddenly, a heart attack at 71, right in the middle of the soybean fields he loved, the same fields he had ruled for decades. The detail that cut the deepest was one Emily had lived with her entire life. Donald had never publicly acknowledged her as his daughter. In the 1980s, Donald Vasconelos was the largest soybean producer in the region. He owned 840 acres of prime Iowa farmland, land now worth more than $12 million. Widowed young, he ran the farm with hired hands, and one man he trusted above all others. That man was Thomas Campos. People called him the machine whisperer. He could listen to an engine for minutes and diagnose what certified technicians missed for weeks. Degrees meant nothing next to his instinct. He didn't just repair machines, he improved them. Thomas modified hydraulic systems, built solutions that didn't exist in manuals, and made heavy machinery perform better while using less fuel. Farmers said his work bordered on magic. To Thomas, it was simply understanding how machines wanted to work. Thomas's daughter, Sarah, worked as a cook in Donald's main house. She prepared meals for the farmhands, meals that filled more than stomachs. She had a gentle smile and strong hands, hands shaped by honest work and care. Between the smell of wood smoke, the rumble of tractors, and quiet conversations after long days, something unexpected happened. Donald and Sarah fell in love. It was discreet, almost invisible. Donald was powerful and respected. Sarah was an employee with no formal education but deep wisdom. When Sarah discovered she was pregnant, Donald didn't deny responsibility, but he also didn't claim it publicly. Instead, he gave her a small cottage on the edge of the property with 20 acres of land. It wasn't luxury, but it was security. He made sure she never lacked anything. Emily was born in that cottage in 1996. She grew up seeing her father from afar, receiving affection only when no one else was watching. Quiet gestures, brief moments, a love that existed but never spoke its name. The man who truly raised Emily was her grandfather, Thomas. By the time she was 7, she spent afternoons in the workshop watching him dismantle massive machines. He explained every circuit, every pressure line, every secret the manuals never mentioned. By 16, Emily understood hydraulic systems better than most grown men. Then tragedy struck. Thomas suffered a stroke while repairing a planter and died 3 days later. Before he passed, he squeezed Emily's hand and said words she never forgot. "What I taught you isn't in books," he told her. "It's in your head and your hands. Keep it safe. One day it'll be worth more than any land." Emily cried so hard that day she thought she'd never touch a tool again. But life doesn't pause for grief. At 21, she left Iowa and threw herself into work. She entered specialized workshops in Des Moines and Cedar Rapids, environments dominated by men who doubted her from the start. She endured ridicule, disbelief, and open prejudice. But machines didn't care about gender. Skill spoke louder than opinions. Emily became known as the mechanic who solved the impossible. When trained engineers failed, they called her. She fixed machines others had given up on, quietly building a reputation rooted in results. Then life struck again. At 25, Emily married Marcus, an agricultural equipment salesman with kind eyes and steady hands. They planned a future, talked about children, and built something fragile and hopeful. One rainy night, on Highway 80, a drunk driver crossed the center line. Marcus died instantly. Emily survived with a broken collarbone and a shattered heart. She buried herself in work to survive the pain. Through all those years, Donald continued supporting Sarah quietly. He paid the cottage bills and made sure she lived comfortably. But he never publicly claimed Emily. The rejection hurt, but Emily accepted it for her mother's sake. Then Donald died. Emily took a bus back to her hometown, her chest tight with dread. She didn't expect inheritance. She just wanted to be there for her mother. Sarah was 63 now, her hands twisted by severe arthritis. The same hands that had fed so many. Without Donald's support, the bills piled up quickly. In 8 months, debt reached $150,000. The bank threatened foreclosure. The cottage, their only home, was on the brink of being taken. Desperate, Emily went to the county clerk's office hoping for something, anything, that might protect her mother. The office smelt of old paper and polish. Inside sat the family attorney, 2 witnesses, and a sharply dressed man with cold eyes. Gabriel Amarem, Donald's second cousin. When the will was read, everything went to Gabriel. The land, the machines, the accounts. Emily's name wasn't mentioned once. When she asked about the cottage, Gabriel laughed. He said Sarah lived there by charity. Charity that ended with Donald's death. He called Sarah an employee and Emily a bastard daughter of a cook. The room went silent. Emily tried to explain her connection to the farm, her knowledge of its machines. Gabriel dismissed her completely. Women didn't understand heavy machinery, he said. Especially not daughters of employees. He gave her 30 days to leave. After that, he would tear down the cottage and plant soybeans where it stood. Emily walked out with shaking legs but dry eyes. She would not cry in front of him. She returned home and told her mother everything. Sarah held her hand and reminded her that knowledge couldn't be taken by paper. What Emily didn't know yet was that those words were about to become prophecy. The next days were the hardest Emily had ever faced. The townspeople feared Gabriel Amarem, and no one dared offer her work. Workshops that had once welcomed her now shut their doors. Whispers of Gabriel's anger spreading faster than wildfire. Her savings dwindled, disappearing faster than she could earn, while her mother Sarah's health deteriorated with each passing day. Sarah's arthritis had grown so severe that even holding a cup became a challenge. And the cost of her medication weighed heavily on Emily. Then came the bank notice. If the $150,000 debt wasn't paid within 45 days, their cottage would be auctioned. Emily sat at the kitchen table staring at numbers that refused to add up, realizing time was slipping away. She needed a miracle or at least one last chance. Setting her pride aside, Emily decided to speak to Gabriel one more time. Perhaps he would listen to reason. Perhaps he would show mercy for her mother. Her plan was simple. She would offer her specialized maintenance skills and ask only that her mother's home debt be forgiven. Thursday morning, she drove her grandfather's old 1998 Ford pickup to the farm. The engine sputtered but ran, just like Thomas had taught her to keep things alive long past their expected end. She parked near the machine shed and walked toward the main house, where memories of laughter and cooking now seemed like ghosts. A young employee opened the door and called Gabriel, who stepped outside in expensive boots, wearing impatience like armor. He looked at Emily as if she were a nuisance, refusing to disappear. Emily calmly explained her proposal, detailing the value of the machines, the importance of specialized maintenance, and the knowledge she had inherited from her grandfather. Gabriel laughed. He told her he had already hired certified technicians and that someone like her had no place on his farm. When she mentioned her grandfather's decades of experience, he snapped, ordering her to leave immediately. Then Emily noticed the trucks parked near the shed and the people gathered inside. Gabriel smirked and explained that the regional agricultural cooperative was meeting, not a place for intruders. Emily pleaded, but Gabriel grabbed her arm and dragged her inside. Around 30 men turned to watch as he mocked her name, her gender, and her skills. Laughter filled the space, cruel and deliberate. He asked if anyone would trust a woman with $1 million machine. Some shook their heads, some laughed, and Emily froze as her dignity was stripped away piece by piece. When she tried to defend herself and her mother, Gabriel threatened to call the police, making it clear she was alone. Emily left with her head high, but by the time she reached the pickup her hands were shaking uncontrollably. At home, she collapsed into her mother's arms, finally letting her grief pour out. Sarah reminded her that knowledge and skill could never be taken by paper, and that patience and preparation always bore fruit. But Emily could see only one thing. Eviction loomed in 38 days, and she had neither money nor work. 3 weeks passed like years, as she took small jobs in Des Moines, saving every penny, yet it still wasn't enough. Then the phone rang. Benedict, an old mechanic who had worked with Thomas for decades, spoke with urgency. Gabriel's planter had broken down completely. Immobilized for 10 days, despite attempts from technicians across multiple states, Emily instantly recognized the same modified hydraulic system her grandfather had built years ago. Every hour of downtime cost Gabriel millions, and the emergency was growing more severe by the minute. The next morning, an emergency cooperative meeting was called. Gabriel had already spent tens of thousands on failed consultants. Someone jokingly mentioned Emily's name, and Gabriel saw an opportunity for humiliation. A public bet was announced. If Emily could repair the planter, she would earn 200 acres for $30. If she failed, she would publicly apologize and relinquish all claims forever. Laughter echoed around the shed, Gabriel confident of her failure. Cassio Drummond rushed to warn Emily, insisting it was a trap. She looked at her mother's tired eyes and swollen hands and, despite fear, accepted the challenge. At 8 a.m. the following morning, Emily arrived at the farm. Half the town had gathered, including a local reporter. The massive planter sat silent in the yard, a monument to Gabriel's arrogance. He announced a 2-hour time limit. Emily said nothing. She set down her grandfather's toolbox and approached the machine, climbing into the cab. The engine roared to life, revealing the problem was hydraulic, not electronic. She inspected the machine carefully, then discovered a panel that seemed purely decorative. Pulling 3 latches in precise sequence, she revealed a hidden hydraulic system. Silence fell over the crowd, even the engineers leaning in for a closer look. Emily calmly explained her grandfather's design. A pressure compensation system requiring manual calibration every 500 hours. Neglect had caused the total lockup. She depressurized the system, removed the regulator valve, cleaned it, and recalibrated everything with her own tools. 40 minutes later, she closed the panel and climbed back into the cab. Activating the hydraulics, all 24 planting rows lowered and lifted in flawless synchronization. Applause erupted, and Gabriel's face drained of color. Emily stepped down slowly. "The machine is alive," she said. The crowd cheered. Gabriel was speechless. She looked at her mother. Pride and relief shone in Sarah's eyes. Emily had proven that skill and knowledge surpassed gender and status. The day became legendary in the town. Emily Vasconelos' name was spoken with respect by farmers and technicians alike. Gabriel realized he had underestimated a woman who truly understood the secrets of machinery. Emily had won respect and justice for her mother and the farm, inspiring every witness to believe that courage, skill, and determination can overcome even the harshest odds.